As health and wellness providers, we know that better patient outcomes require a whole person, multidisciplinary approach that we just can't provide on our own. That's why I've started the Wellness Center Creators Podcast. I'll be bringing you interviews with experts, tips, tricks, secrets, resources, systems, and solutions so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And creating your wellness center won't feel like starting over. Jane is an all-in-one practice management software with helpful features like online booking, admin scheduling, integrated payment processing, and charting. But there's more to Jane than you might think. The team at Jane cares a lot about the problems you face as a practitioner. One of those problems is the prevalence of no-shows and late cancellations in practices. So they've made it easy for you with a few simple tools built right into Jane. That includes the ability to implement an online booking payment policy, send out unlimited text and email reminders, and enabling waitlist management features to fill those last-minute gaps that weren't preventable. Come see Jane in action at jane.app. If you know you're ready to sign up, you can mention the show for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Welcome back, everyone, to the Wellness Center Creators Podcast. Today on the show, we have Jake Hendrix. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
If we could start out and tell our listeners just a bit about yourself and how you got to be doing the work you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I am the studio director at a creative agency called Riff Creative and also host a podcast, like a visual, actually, video vodcast called the Roadcast. So Riff is a boutique creative agency that focuses on kind of storytelling, authentic storytelling and brand creation. So everything from graphic design, creating brands and logos, to building websites and apps, photo, video content creation. And then we do some executive coaching as well, kind of focusing specifically on emotional well-being in the workplace and like self-awareness and kind of how do you boost the EQ of the workplace. And so I do some coaching there. I'm a certified coach in a tool called Kolbe. And then, yeah, I'm a dabbler. Someone was like, you're a dabbler. And I'm like, I'm a bit of a dabbler. And then I also I host this podcast where we have an Airstream and we travel around and interview artists, designers, and entrepreneurs. So yeah,
amazing.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. We're glad to have you here today. And Riff Creative did all of our brand refresh, all of our newest branding for Vancouver Wellness Studio. So people can check out
one of the best clients we've ever worked with. Easily. Easily.
I paid you to say that.
Not true. And I would do it again if everyone was so great. It's, agency life, that's part of it. It's like, it's a grind and they're tough clients. None of my clients are tough, but.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second because, I get a lot of questions from most of my business coaching clients are healthcare professionals who are starting multidisciplinary practices or they have a group practice. And I get a lot of questions about marketing healthcare businesses. Yeah. So I don't really have a specific question for you about that, but I'm curious, like your experience of working with healthcare businesses and what you see that might be different than other industries.
Yeah, that's good. No, I think the thing that comes to mind, and this Riff, like it's interesting. We started from an architecture firm, and really the genesis of that, like our agency, was a standing meeting that they called Idea Farm, which was really like, hey, pitch good ideas and let's see if we can start them. So basically, like, what's your side hustle and how, like, these kind of multidisciplinary, like, what are these other things you want to really be about? And so it has that in our DNA of basically, like, we love to help people start. So 0 to 1 is like the sweet spot, like helping identify, like, what's your mission? Like, why do you exist? And I think for us, when we start to work with brands or kind of healthcare organizations, it's typically kind of getting to that like core story, like starting with the why of saying like, beyond making money, why do you do what you do? And if we can establish that, and then establish like, what's your unique way of creating value for people? And then lastly, like when that succeeds, what's that look like? And that looks like vision, So if you're the way you're creating value, we always use like NASA. It's like, hey, our goal is to like have the greatest space program in the world. That sounds kind of boring. We're going to put a man on the moon. You can see that.
Yeah.
That's vision. And so to us, that's kind of the difference between mission and vision, is saying, the master plan of value is how you're doing it. And then when it all comes to completion, like, this is what it looks like. So yeah, I think it's first just establishing that story. We really just work on like, and it's funny, one of the first exercises we do is we just call it a history map and say, tell us your story. And then we just have an animator whiteboard the story and get that timeline of everything, kind of the peaks and valleys. And from there, you just start to kind of identify themes of like, well, it seems like you're drawn towards this, or you had some insight here. But for us, I think it all flows from story. And then from that, starting to refine those things. And that's kind of fun. Like, how do you want that story to be represented visually? Or I think with VWS, it was hey, we're looking to kind of refresh and look at a different like clientele, and how do we want to position ourselves that way? But ultimately, it was still about your story and what you've created and what you want to do and how do you want to represent your story symbolically. So it's funny, like you don't think about marketing as important, but it really is. It's the way people think about you, and cultivating that kind of look and feel and messaging. So it's fun. It's so varied. We get to work with all kinds of different people, and you kind of live in that story space.
It's hugely important. And I think I work with a lot of clients that, when we start out as healthcare professionals, we're not taught anything about business, first of all, in school, and we're not taught about marketing, and it can get pushed to the bottom of the priority list. But it should really be at the top.
Yeah.
If you want to build a business, it has to be at the top. And a lot of times healthcare professionals, don't want to be sales people.
Yeah.
And so it's shifting that mindset from selling to really showing the community that you're really offering something that they need. That's what you're doing.
I think to me, like that's the authentic story. It's just, in the end, it's like in your story, there's something value. And I think to me, that's maybe something that's unique or personal about my opinion about it, is I actually don't think I bring a ton to the table. I mean, I do in terms of value, but when it comes to like discovering this, it's all latent within the story, your story. And so as someone tells their story, they're giving you the information. And a lot of times it's just that third perspective to say, hey, this is what's valuable. And that's really unique. And let's tease that out and bring it forward. And so to me, it's helpful to kind of think of it like authentic storytelling as a way to like get that cheesy kind of, like icky marketing feel off of it.
Let's talk about executive coaching a bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious kind of like what's your favorite topic to work on with companies, right? Like, because I know LSW Architects and Riff Creative, right, is owned by the same person. And both these companies have, from what I've seen, I've worked with all of you quite a bit at this point, and your teams have really healthy cultures and a good dynamic. So I'm curious, like when you approach executive coaching, like what's your favorite thing to work on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and it is just being someone who is inside the two cultures and has been, it's actually, I can answer it very specifically. So the leadership implemented two different tools. One is called Print and one called Kolbe. Print focuses on like kind of the like motivational, like those undercurrent motivations of why you do what you do. So it starts to answer that, like, why are you the way you are? Like, why do you do, what do you love? Like, whether it's like you want to achieve or you want to help or you want to get more knowledge or have fun, kind of identifying that for a person. And then Kolbe is another tool. And this is the one I think is really unique. And this is what I would love to zoom in on, is it's focused on kind of the doing. So the three parts of the mind, thinking, feeling, doing, there's not a lot of like personality tests or tools that help you identify the way you do something. There's the like IQ and the EQ, like the Myers-Briggs tests or strength finders. But when it comes to like the way you take action, there aren't a lot. And so Kolbe basically says, hey, we're going to help you identify, really bring the self-awareness up around the way you do work, the way you go to solve a problem. And so those two tools are implemented really deeply. And that's the coaching we do, is we use Kolbe and print. And I think with Kolbe is it's the way you gather and share information, the way that you kind of utilize systems, like are you adapting systems, kind of fighting systems, or are you organizing systems? Quick start is the way you deal with risk. Are you mitigating risk, or are you really comfortable with risk? And then implementation is like the way you work in the tangible world. So both of those tools, in short, are aimed at self-awareness, right? And as soon as you bring that awareness around why you do what you do and then how you do it, it basically, it's my favorite Carl Jung quote is that like, until you make the subconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate, right? And basically it's these little tools that are saying, hey, let's bring some of the subconscious, like you do have a specific way you do things. For me, I love to brainstorm first. That's why I like, put me in a room, let's brainstorm. For someone else, they don't want to brainstorm. They want all the information first. They want to research and they want to come prepared. And basically, you start to organize your company based upon the way people work and saying like, don't make a project manager brainstorm all day. They're going to burn out. And don't make me project manage. Like, I'm much more comfortable with risk. So put me in places where I can go risk. But so it's basically saying like gauging people's EQ, how they do it, why they do it, and then putting them in spots where they can shine their unique abilities. And so it's more based, and that's really gets to like why I'm even at the firm in the first place, is that when I was first talking to the ownership, Casey Wyckoff, he was saying, we're not an architecture firm, we're not a creative agency, we're a unique ability firm that happens to do these things. We care more about your unique abilities, and let's find. So it feels kind of pie in the sky, but it's very doable, and saying the more that you're aware of what you love and what you don't love and the way you work, and then to put people in those spots. So when it comes to executive coaching, I think just starting to identify how you work is super helpful, why you do what you do. And then when you put the team together, you can kind of start to see like, is it a balanced team or is it an imbalanced team? And I think that's what I get excited about, is optimizing teams, is saying, let's put people in the right spots and then let the team go, versus like identifying where there's burnout. So that was a very long answer. Sorry.
That's great. I think especially like healthcare business owners, tend to really appreciate this like evidence-based work, right? Like science-based work and practices. And so something like that, like the Kolbe test, to get all of that data.
Yes.
And then to be able to look at that and say, well, actually, we can make an educated decision about this and have it, work in real life it's pretty cool.
It's so fun. It's kind of, because you basically, when a whole team takes it, it's like reading the tea leaves. Like if your team has a lot of people that love to brainstorm and like are short on following through, it's like you got a lot of ideas, but not a lot of execution.
Yeah.
Or you have people that really want to mitigate risk. You can say, we have all the information, we have all the systems, but no decisions getting made. No one is like taking the jump and doing it. And so when you come into a team and kind of just lay those things out, the team actually self-corrects. And you go like, well, maybe we don't have a lot of this type of a person on our team. Where can we delegate that? Is there something we can automate? And it is based on that, and people that are even skeptical, I love it. Like this, we did a workshop one time, and it was for a startup, and there's like 20 people in there, and like the chief pilot, just super skeptical. It was aviation based.
Oh my gosh.
And he was just like, what is this like mumbo jumbo witchcraft stuff? We're like, okay, take it easy. It's a personality quiz. But just kind of resistance of like, you can't know me, or, but then you take these tests, you get the data, and then at the end of it, he's like, I want this for my family. I want my wife to take through it. I want my kids. I want it, because it's just, and there's something about that I think that really is what I love the most, is that it ends up depersonalizing frustrations on the team.
Yeah.
Going, instead of like attacking that person or getting angry at that person for the way they do something, you kind of say, oh, that's just the way they do it. And I may not go to them for that thing, go to someone else.
Yeah. and to help companies really form leadership teams too, because I think a lot of times in small businesses in our field, and I think this happens in all industries, but like as the owner or the leader, we might want someone else to be a leader, or we might see that in them and want them to be in a certain role, but they actually have no desire to do that. And it's actually not their strength. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think it's all too common where, we just might put the wrong person in the wrong position and they would be much more successful in a different role.
Yeah. I think that's the tools are super helpful in that as well, where, even in hiring, there's right fit hiring where someone may be super nice and like quality character and like you just love them, but they're not suited for that role. Like you're going to put them in a position that's going to be frustrating for them, like you said. And if you can get ahead of that and put people in spaces where it's like an energy thing, really, when it comes down to it. That's what I love about it. Saying, hey, you have a unique way of doing things, and that's a good thing. Like, don't fight it. Like, go where you have energy. If your energy is in making things or generating ideas or researching and finding out more, or in creating processes for a business to flourish. Our project manager, kind of our operations director, and we have the exact opposite, like test results. And we have the highest like potential for conflict. And yet we get along just as good as anyone else because we now know, like, here's my favorite example. So I'm low on fact finder, low on like the follow through and processes and systems, and she's super high, but I don't mind risking. And like one of the tips for us working together was like, her name's Kinsey. And it's like, Kinsey, schedule regular check-ins with Jake, but make them feel like they're random. Like put it on your calendar. And I think
oh my gosh.
I died laughing so hard because it's like, if you told me like, hey, we have a scheduled thing, I'm immediately be like, oh, I don't want another scheduled meeting and da-da-da-da. But if it just feels like she's popping in, I'm like, oh, great. So if the test gets you, the goal is undefeated. Like we just are the way we are and work with it. And it creates fun cultures.
It's amazing.
Do you have some stuff running there? You're like, I've done that. I schedule meetings for people.
I do it. I do that. I set myself reminders and I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing?
It's a good way.
Yes.
Hey there, this is Katie from Jane. We're delighted to be a part of your listening experience today. Here at Jane, we're on a mission to help the helpers. In other words, we're doing everything we can to help you create a thriving business. We do that by offering features like online booking, scheduling, billing, and charting. We also make it easy for you to use Jane to reduce no-shows and late cancellations in your practice. You'll find that by requesting a credit card on file and enabling text and email reminders, no-shows will drop off significantly, saving you time and potential loss in revenue. Head on over to jane.app to learn more about us, or mention the show for a 1-month grace period if you know you're ready to get started. We'll talk to you later.
So I know a bit about the Roadcast, but tell our listeners what it's all about.
Yeah. We started a design conference in 2019 at the peak of in-person meetings, having no clue what the years following would hold for us. So here in Vancouver, we started a design conference, really just to kind of elevate kind of the design reputation in Vancouver and to gather people. And it was an entrepreneurial like event and idea, and brought in some really amazing people from Lucasfilm and all over the place. And it went really well, and we were super excited. And then 2020 happened. And I think really Roadcast was a pivot off of that, of saying, how do we tell stories of local artists, designers, and innovators and put them on the stage with people that are doing it, at a world-class level? So Roadcast kind of was born out of this. Well, if we can't ask people to meet together, then like, what's the solution? And we had an Airstream trailer. So we wrapped the Airstream trailer with this branding and came up with this idea of the Roadcast, where basically we'd hit the road and we have camp chairs and would film it 6 feet apart because it was the pandemic. And we could go to people and still listen to their stories and have these kind of like presentations and talks that's really focused on like popping the hood on the creative process for people. So it's saying, this person is a composer. This person is a painter. This person is an animator. This person is a graphic designer. When you pop the hood on the creative process, a lot of times, like, it's super inspiring and you learn a ton. And just, again, by listening to someone's story and kind of digging into their processes, and it doesn't matter if it's the same creative field as you or not, just a lot of interesting content comes out. So it's now expanded. And so, yeah, we've been down to LA, we've been to Bend, we've done Montana, we've done some local strikes, but it really is just trying to spark creativity and creative inspiration in people around design, art, and innovation. I think the part of the impetus too is just running a creative agency. Like, you have 6 seconds if you want to create a video. Like, yes, there's long form discussion coming up, but if you want to catch people's attention and going like, just kind of a pushback against that of like, social media is now not social media. It's actually like social entertainment. It's just, you're just trying to get sucked into scrolling and the reel cycle versus, can we create meaningful content? And even if it's another little drop in the bucket, let's create interesting, creative, meaningful, where there's a dialogue, maybe long form discussion, and is also creative. So we've got to do some fun stuff. We've toured the Sonos speakers down in Santa Barbara, where they make all of the speakers with their lead designer and get a peek into that process. The Creature Shop for Henson Studio was a fun one. A lot of local innovators and entrepreneurs. Onyx out in Montana is an app that's kind of a mapping system. Our local Slumberkin girls. We just did a Bend one. So the Bend one's going to come out here in the next week or two, actually. Our first episode.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have 5 episodes coming out of Bend. But yeah. It's fun. And it's it's, again, kind of like wild ideas, and let's get out there and talk to people and
it's an excuse to be in the creative process.
That's right. Exactly.
Love it. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your personal story. You're an interesting dude, and you're doing you've done lots of things, doing lots of things. And like you said earlier, you like to dabble in different areas. But I think our listeners always appreciate just hearing how you got into really this work and doing this creative work, and what you were doing before. And I know you're a single parent, and there's lots of us out there that are doing the parenting thing and trying to balance it all and make it work. Yeah. So, whatever totally. You want to share in that realm.
Yeah. It's interesting because for people who haven't seen the Roadcast is a super brand new, beautiful like Airstream. It's gorgeous, and we pull it with this Land Rover, and then I basically get to go talk to a bunch of cool people, and it just looks amazing. And people ask how do you apply for that job? Like, what do you do? How do we get there? And it was, to make like a really long story shorter, I actually planted a church. So I'm 41. I planted a church when I was 28, which was a good idea or bad idea, but I did it. It kind of is that like entrepreneurial thing, looking back, then realizing it, that like, I'm like, I'll start a totally church. Great. I'll go for it. Oh. And was there for about 10 years in the downtown area of Vancouver. And then kind of had this like a kind of like personal crisis with the family. Had a spouse who went through some pretty severe like postpartum depression that then kind of unfolded into something larger, into a diagnosis of schizoaffective depressive disorder. And when that kind of fully came, it really disrupted her personality really pretty bad. And I would say at that point, I was like pretty cheery. It's like almost like there's like this other side. There's like a door that you have no clue what's behind that door. Mm-hmm. And you live your whole life kind of not knowing. And then that door opens up and you're like, oh, there's this side of life that I actually wasn't aware of. Yeah. That you hear about, but it hadn't really it hadn't like opened into your home, and so not even know the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist to really quickly like trying to figure out all that kind of help. My kids are 2, and 4 at the time at kind of its severity. So I actually had to pull back from church and took a break, and actually had a year where I actually just stayed at home and cared for the kids and cared for her. And it's funny though, when things fall apart, like I would never want to go back through it again in a million years. But when things kind of crumble, it definitely, like Joseph Campbell in the like hero's journey, it's like the abyss. When you're in the abyss, a lot of times that's where like this new opportunity, you're able to see something. I think for me, it was just like, is this what I want to be doing? One, I can't do it really. Leading a group leading a community wasn't really something that I had the capacity to do at that time. And so it was a kind of forced, but also going like, well, now that I don't do this anymore, what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. And I think it was that kind of question, of like very base question of what do I want? Mm-hmm. And identifying our desires is one of the most difficult things. You kind of come pre-programmed, with your parents and everything else, of saying like, but really tuning in to saying, what is it that I want? Especially when you don't have a lot anymore, when stuff gets stripped away. So I think it was like out of that kind of dark place, I was like, well, maybe I'll be a flagger. Like I'll just, it's just that like I can wave a flag and do construction work, or, it was just like, how do I pay the bills? It was definitely way more survival than anything else. But then it was just paying attention, like, what is it that causes the spike in thought or response? Like, what's something you love? And it was actually these tests, this like Kolbe test with this architecture firm. They had actually taken my leadership team through it. I'm like, gosh, just the way they're approaching problem solving and people, very attentive, very interesting, and it's creating an interesting culture. And I'm like, man, if I had the chance to just even like hang out and kind of listen in on that stuff. And so I called them, and they were like, well, we have this meeting, this idea farm, come sit in. And I just sat in and like participated and kind of kept at it. And that was really how it shifted. It was just out of this giant mess. And then from that, they kind of identified that I'm a person that naturally doesn't mind, having big ideas and risking. And so my first 2 tasks were to start a design conference from scratch, and then help solve youth homelessness in the city. Yeah. I said that those are the 2 things we want you to do. Easy peasy. Both are accomplished. Mission accomplished. No, not at all.
But so on your way.
Yeah. So anyways, I think that it's, paying attention that what do you want is, and it's not always like a 1 + 1 = 2. I think there's a lot of like serendipity and like, I don't know, like when you start to follow your bliss, or, kind of take the risk and do the thing that you've been thinking about, things kind of start to unfold often in front of you. And it's kind of woo woo, but like, it's also, there's some truth in it, So, I mean, that's one side of it. I think the other side is just the pain and, raising kids, for the most part, full time, through a really difficult circumstance. Yeah, that's probably a different podcast.
That's another episode. How old are your kids now, Jake?
8 and 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good little dudes.
Yeah.
Aww. Yeah. The 3 amigos. We call ourselves the 3 amigos.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate our conversation today. I think our listeners will get a lot from it. And now I personally want to learn everything there is to know about the Kolbe test. And
I can help.
We're doing it.
Yes.
You sold me. Casey told me about it a long time ago, and I just hadn't jumped in yet. But now that I understand more how it can be put into action.
Oh yeah.
And utilized in that way. Because we've done things like that over the years where it's like, okay, we have the information, but then no follow-up really.
Yeah.
So you'll be hearing from me there.
I love it. Action. And it's so action oriented. It's a good way. Like even the description of it, it's like the way you take action in the world, and I think it's just intuitively you just start using it because it's about that. So,
yeah. Well, thanks for being here. And people can find you on what's Riff's website? Riff Creative?
So we actually just riff.agency.
Riff.agency. Okay.
Yep. No .coms. None of that. It sounds fancy. And then, the roadcast.com as well. And then just at the Roadcast on Instagram and stuff. But thank you so much for having me. I think having been able to spend a little bit of time with you and your team, like the utmost respect for your approach and to wellness and what you're doing for the community. And we're huge fans and have deep respect for what you do.
Well, thank you for that. We feel the same about you. And for our listeners, I cannot recommend Riff enough for branding and marketing. And it really has been an amazing experience. And we continue to work with your team, on an ongoing basis.
Look at this. I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Wellness Center Creators Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please visit our website at wellnesscentercreators.com for more show notes and additional episodes. Plus, if you do have time, please subscribe to the podcast and please consider rating and reviewing the show. That will help other people find us. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Wellness Center Creators Podcast.